Really, just to kickstart it off, going back to our conversation just last week that you and I had, we had a kickoff call with one of your clients, and one big takeaway I got from that was the level of trust that you've built with your client. It's not like he's my client, it's really your partners in this, and you guys are in it together to work hard to figure out what needs to be done to accomplish the specific goals. And so where I want to start is talking about your onboarding process, and we'll have both of you kind of share what are those steps. What do you do when you first get a client? What are those steps to make sure they're onboarded correctly so you're set up properly for that campaign?
Yeah, I love that question, and it's something that I think just comes naturally at this point since I've been doing it for so many years. But I'm also glad that the partnering element came through to you too, because that's one thing I really try to foster with clients, and I think that sets us up for a more successful relationship, because our industry in general is fraught with a lot of scam people and a lot of people that will take your money and not really give you results. And so you guys have probably heard this too when people come to you from somewhere else, but I mean, I hear it all the time. It's like, we had this guy doing SEO for us and we spent tens of thousands of dollars, and I didn't even know what we were getting. We didn't get the result. And so there's that misalignment there. And so right in the very beginning with onboarding, I like to reassure them of what my processes are, the transparency. So here's a doc that I'm going to share with you that shows everything I'm doing and our agreed upon goals and task lists, so that I kind of put them in the driver's seat a little bit more. Say, here's, of course, I need to find out what their business is all about and what their goals are, and then match that to where they currently are with their website or with their landscape. See who their competitors are and how far that delta is, and say, okay, what are your goals? What do you want to focus on? Okay, based on that, let me do an audit, do the audit, and this is what that has revealed. Let's prioritize these things into what you can do, what you want me to do, and then let's work together to make that happen. And I try to use a lot of words like partner and trust and stuff, because I genuinely feel that way. And I very honest and candid with them and say, and I'm this way with Tyler when I work too, is if I don't get the results that we've agreed upon, you're going to fire me. And if your business isn't successful, I'm out. And so there's no contracts with me. I have to earn that month over month. And at least if you know that we're going in the right direction, then we'll have a successful partnership. And so I end up keeping my clients a long time because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's exactly how I felt with that call, was, when the gentleman's like, sure, you can CC me on stuff, but I trust Scott. Scott knows what he's doing, and just moving along. And I was just really impressed with that. So how about you, Tyler? When you do your onboarding, walk us through those steps.
Yeah, so a lot of it is very similar to what Scott does, in the sense of you right off the bat establish that I'm a real person, I'm here for you, I'm here to facilitate your goals, what will make you successful in the organization. But I know that trust is something that you don't just say, you can trust me, and that's the end of it. It's actually showing in actions. And so that's follow through, that's a follow-up email, that's keeping them on top of it. You mentioned putting somebody in the driver's seat. It is very much, we agreed to these things, we need you for this particular action or follow through, and keeping them honest in what they promise us, as well as knowing that within building that trust, there are times where you're still, like any relationship, you're learning what that means. And what I think is trust, someone who is trusting relatively easily, just in my personality, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's translated over to somebody who's been burned 100 times, or who has a partner that they just recently had to separate from for various reasons. maybe not even nefarious, just because someone moved or that the company went under or changed. And so it's really making sure that it's like we're real people, we're here, and we're in turn going to be taking care of you, but are also willing to have those hard and or constructive conversations when things don't work out. Typical, email conversations and communication is always key in that. Where I'm coming from, where they're coming from, and I think that it's a good, through my process, I also look for little things in what the client says and or what or how they say things in order to determine, I've been doing this long enough to determine what they actually mean, and so it's almost speaking another language. And when I hear that they've been burned before, it's like, okay, are they just saying that in general because they don't really know how to communicate what happened to them previously, or they know their stuff, and in turn I can then ask some more clarifying questions to figure out what kind of SEO knowledge that they have. Not that I know everything, but there are personalities and individuals who do think that they know everything, and in turn there's a different way to navigate that. And just being flexible, and again having those conversations and that communication in that beginning process is key to really establish what the relationship looks like in the future. And sometimes I say it's my crystal brain, but sometimes you can tell that it's like this person is under a lot of pressure, and so when they say results, we really need to get on the same page on what will put them in the best position to have those hard conversations or to have those positive conversations with their client in order to keep this going, and or to let them know what you're communicating to me is a 3-month or 90-day thing, and that's really all that it's going to go to. We're not going to find 50 sites for your one location program page that has 7 words on it, or whatever the very specific that, but they need that to be sold, and I think that but it's also in those initial conversations, it's knowing when to pick your battles, and that's something that I really push hard. Is that is this something that we need to fight for and to get behind and to go to war for, or is this something that, all right, we'll deal with it now, and knowing that it will be something that's more in the moment and or a tension to manage versus something versus a problem.
And that it also kind of helps with the process that we both use there, I think, to vet out partnerships as well too, because sometimes it doesn't always work, and sometimes it's not a good fit. And you really want it to be, and you want to help people out and stuff too, but just sometimes it's just, maybe it's a personality thing or a goal thing or an expectation thing or something. But I think if you go through the process this way and approach it in a more partnering manner, then sometimes that partnership, you date a little bit in the beginning. Let's not get married. And or let's be just friends. And keep it professional, and very much there is there for every client that we have a relationship like you and I do, or even the relationship between coworkers. There are clients where it's like, this is what we did, this is what happened from it, and I will talk to you in 2 weeks, and that is the end of it. And there's just nothing, but that's what they need, or that's what their personality requires. But there's also, but within that, there's one of my favorite things is when a client does open up, or they have those breakthrough moments that it's like they're, almost like the lock has been released, and that trust is there, and it's powerful.
I think that's really leading into the next question that I'd like to focus on for a couple minutes, is the ideal client or partner. Like you said, not everyone. You don't even want to bring on everybody. There's people that you work with, you're like, okay, I'm totally okay with cutting ties with this particular company or person or whatever, because that partnership's not there. It's not always a bad thing. And so when you guys are looking at clients that are coming on board in those partnerships, what are some of those things that you're really looking for that is going to be like, wow, this is going to be an awesome campaign that you get excited for out of the gate?
Oh, that's a great question, and I start to get excited even just thinking about that, because there are some examples where I've had that, and you get that. I think it has to be, for me, it has to be something I care about, like their industry.
Okay.
Sometimes I had one client who sold like machine type parts and stuff, and it was really hard for me to get excited about content or anything like that. And the partnership, he was from a part of the country that's very brash as well, and so it was a personality thing too. And so it was difficult for me to have calls with him and just get beaten down all the time. And then every call with him, I felt like I was going to be fired at the end of the call. And then he would be just like, all right, so what are we doing what's the strategy for next month? I'm like, after that, you really want me to stay on, you know? And finally, I wasn't able to move the needle the way I wanted to. And he apparently was okay still, you know, plugging away at it. But for me, and I want to be ethical and honest with everyone, including myself, and I fired myself eventually. And I mean, some of the relationship stuff kind of aided in that decision too, because it just wasn't a fun and enjoyable partnership. But I told him, I says, I'm not able to get these results that you need and that I feel like are possible, and so I'm gonna introduce you to another person. And I handed it off to someone else who also was consulted on the side, and he was like, what, really? You know, it's like nobody breaks up with me. And I was just like, this just isn't working, and and that's happened to me sometimes. And I've had other clients where I didn't have them pay me, and I just did the work for a while until, you know, they got up on their feet some more, and they said, oh, I gotta pay you something. What can I send you? Just send me whatever you think it deserves right now. And so they just send me a check here now and then. But I cared about what they did, and it was a travel place, and it was just a husband and wife kind of a thing, and he gives tours to people and stuff, and so I really cared about it, and so that's to the extent that I'll partner with people, and so I think those kinds of things make for a successful partnership where they trust me to do my job. And like the client that we were on the phone with the other day, and we established that there are some things that he wants to do, and I think there are some things the client should do if they can, and the other stuff like taking out the trash, you know, leave that part to me, you know, outsource that to me. I'll do the dirty work and stuff that you don't want to do, and then I think those types of scenarios work out a lot better where there's that trust and let's work together. But if you're going to be suspicious of me the whole time and micromanaging and stuff, then neither of us are going to be happy.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a long answer.
But it's a lot. We're talking about the ideal partner. There's so many nuance and we can go broad strokes, but really for me it's always the clear defined goals. And now within those clear defined goals, it's knowing that just because it is a goal doesn't mean that every single thing needs to facilitate that, but you can have mid goals in between that. You can stray a little bit to get back there, and it's that flexibility within that goal to know we're still on the same path. We are walking in that direction, but we might have to go around something to get there. It would make more sense to go right through that mountain and to just push and either create burnout or like you said, like be in a position where it's like we've done everything we can and we can keep pushing through or keep drilling through this impenetrable wall, or we can go around it and or work on other options to still facilitate that end goal. And when you have somebody who does know exactly what they want, in Scott's case, it was very simple, and it's silly to say even simple when it comes to SEO, but it was more traffic. I believe it was a 100,000 plus search was the general goal by a year's time period. And in that, there's so many things that we can do, but that is a clear defined goal. Now, if there was a position that Scott knows what he's talking about and has been doing this for a while, that goal was not unrealistic in what, at least in our mind, and we did reach it, but there are others that their goal is to have a product of theirs rank. And it's like, okay, that's great. and the ideal client would be willing to work with us on what can we do to facilitate that, but there is only a limited scope of work that would facilitate that, and let's do other things to not just put our eggs in one basket and in turn miss out on opportunities because we're so laser focused.
Or the budget doesn't match the expectation.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That can be difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I can think about, like in the sales side of it, at Page One Power is, I like to use a phrase. We like clients that give us objectives, not directives. Essentially, where Tyler's saying you want this clear goal in mind, so you know what you're trying to accomplish. But what I find the hardest campaigns are people who say, I want this product page to rank, so I want you to only build links to this product page with this domain authority range, with this thing in there, and they slam all this stuff into it, and you're just like, okay, what you want now is impossible. But instead, if you said, I want this page to rank better, from there, cool, let's build out a strategy around that. Let's create a content strategy where we can build internal links to that. We can build links to, build out an entire strategy to do that and give us the freedom to do that and leverage our expertise. And I think one thing that people look at when they're hiring an agency is they look at it like they're buying a commodity when really they're not. They're buying expertise and they're buying a partnership. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And so that's kind of where, if they allow that, here's my objective, you can then leverage your partner's expertise to help you accomplish that objective.
Yeah. I think I compare working out in SEO a lot because I don't find it too often where will hire somebody to be your personal trainer and then they're telling you how to do push-ups and you're like, no. Like, that's not how we do push-ups. That's like, this is how you do push-ups. Or, oh no, like I need to eat whatever. It's like, nah, that's not. And but we have that a lot, and it's an but it's still you still, if you have clear defined goals, you might not absolutely agree with the direction, but again that goes back into the trust, or let's just try this, see what happens, and I'm more than willing to say, yep, we were wrong or we didn't reach this goal, but now we know that is not something that's viable, or we at least have some information onto how to do it better next time, or there will always be some information or paper trail to follow, even if something isn't successful. And all this stuff goes back into trust, being that willing partner, and really adhere to that process that when you do come on board.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said try something. It's rare when you're talking to someone, especially like in mine and Michael's situation when we're talking to, to prospects and stuff, that they're open to the idea of trying things. And there was a conference I was in Portland last year, and a couple of like the main speakers, the keynote speakers, that was one of their main things was like, just try it. Like, marketers are so afraid to try different things because our jobs are on the line when we try things. Like the results didn't come like they like you expected or wanted, and so they're your job. But we miss so many awesome opportunities to learn, and even awesome opportunities to really see that needle maybe jump a lot further when we're a little bit more on the edge and we try different things. But that does build into that trust factor.
Point,
you build a great trust factor with your clients, and they're going to be a lot more open to be able to say, Tyler, I trust you. Let's have at it. You got my budget. You run and
it's kind of
bring
what
the
I do.
results.
Just run, just sprint. Like
even sometimes I go, Tyler, how much are we spending with you guys a month? I totally just let it go.
But some of my favorite conversations with you are also those that it's just like, this is coming from the top, or this is a more collective organizational decision, not just coming from you. And it's having those conversations and knowing, okay, like I got to do this now for Scott, or like we're both in this thing together. And it's us against the company sometimes is what it could feel like.
That's true,
And it's like, what can we do to be successful in order to sway minds and or to check that box off to say, cool, we did that thing. Now let's do the thing we know was successful and move on from there. But it's very interesting when it comes to working with so many different personalities. It's something too that I love. A part of our process. It's so established because we have longevity within our organization. I've been with the company coming up on 7 years. There's quite a few of us that are in that same kind of position, and so many individuals will come back to us
Mm-hmm.
and are like, "Oh, Tyler, you're still here," like in an email randomly, like. Is this email working? I think expecting to just get that automatic reply of like, this is no longer here, or something like that. And that's one of my favorite aspects, is that in the marketing field, you do see a lot of people bounce around because they don't have that trust in their organization, or they're given impossible objectives. And we're still here.
That's a great point, and I love that about the tour that we did today. And here's so and so; they've been here this many years and this many years, And I mean, I've been doing SEO for 15 years, but it's great to partner with somebody like you guys. And in link building is a niche as well, that is also rife with a lot of turnover and churn, and because of crappy business ethics and so forth too, that you guys are still here. So. Stability in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's your new tagline.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about this already, but I'm going to ask the questions because I think we can pinpoint them a little bit more in detail. We definitely typically see two types of clients. We have the people who come to us with like a laundry list, or you probably can come to you with a laundry list.
Mm-hmm.
I need this page to rank, you could only use this, you can only do this, you can only do this, and it's like, well, why are you hiring me? You obviously know what you're doing. So we have those types of clients that come in, and then we also have the partners that come in with, like you were talking about. You guys had a big goal, and it was was it increase 100,000 or break that 100? Increase 100,000 in a
break that. No need to break that. Well before my time. But.
So, and so, how do you handle those different situations? So you have them both, and that's just the reality of working in marketing and SEO. You're going to have them both regardless. So how do you handle those?
It's like what Michael said earlier too, is I feel like, and I approach it because, I use you guys as a vendor, but then sometimes I'm the vendor to other people as well, and you feel handcuffed when you're dictated to, like you were saying, and it's like, well, I want this and this and this. And so if they have all of that well thought out, that's okay sometimes, because if it's realistic and it can be done, or I can do it, then that's fine. Then I can handle that, and let's work with that. Obviously, it's more comfortable, and I think our management style is similar to where we enjoy the freedom and the creativity, and let's try something different. Here's the goal. I trust you in this sphere of link building and content creation to help us to get there. Kind of brainstorm with me a little bit, because sometimes I get so in the weeds doing the day-to-day type stuff that I can't think creatively of different ways to get to it. I have a situation that we'll talk about at lunch too that is that way, where it's not realistic, and my boss's boss is hyper-focused on something that shouldn't matter, and we've talked about it a billion different ways. And then this morning, when I'm in here talking with you guys, I get a text, a picture that said, this isn't going in the right direction. And I'm like, and it's an SEO boat too, that it takes a while to turn. Yeah. And it's a really competitive head term as well too. And so sometimes those scenarios can work if they may know what they're doing and they're just outsourcing it to me. Then okay, I'll do that, but we do have that check. Let's have a check-in and make sure that's realistic. And again, going back to the partnership, maybe I don't want to do that and it's not a good fit, and you need to find someone else to do that. If you just want a ton of crap links, Page One Power is not the place to go to. And if you really want to grow and have a stable link profile and not get penalized or whatever or devalued, then let's have a conversation about that too. And it's not a sales takeaway tactic either. It's reality. And you have that confidence that comes through. So either scenario can work. I just think that there are some other questions that need to be asked in both scenarios too, because you don't want to be in that situation where they just say, here's my money, give me results.
Right.
Well, what kind of results do you want? And like you were talking about earlier, define some of that too, because they may have this in their mind, we may have this, A and B, and then 3 months later or whatever, we're not in the same place,
Yeah.
and they fire you anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So-
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's that understanding that it's like, okay, let's say we are going to be directed towards very specific information or handcuffed, and it's where will we be, let's say in a 3-month time period after we do this.
Yeah.
If let's say we're successful, does that mean we do it again? And then that causes another conversation to say, well, we can't, or we shouldn't, or does that mean we do that thing and then we can move on to other specific tactics that were either working better or working more better, relatively speaking. And so that's one way to navigate it. I think too, having the conversations around what that means in the future is like really how to navigate that. It's like, is this a one and done kind of thing that we need to fight for to make sure that there is longevity here, or is it something that we need to I'm trying to think of a better phrase than eat it, but just take it now. Yeah, just take it now, and in turn, because that will put us in a better position, that will gain that trust, other things like that we can establish as an organization. Sometimes people just need help, and I think that what helps facilitate those individual situations is that communication. If it's something very specific, it's then communicating the successes within that, the failures and the struggles. Something that I hate doing is someone tells you, I need a hole and I need it this size and this depth and everything like that. And for whatever reason, it's impossible. You don't have the right tools. You don't have the right personnel.
In there.
Exactly. There's other factors that we didn't see.
Yeah.
And so then instead, I just dig like 28 holes that are basically the same volume. And it's like that you can easily do those things just to facilitate the work if you're not communicating with the client on what those obstacles are or what the concrete slabs are in your way.
Yeah.
That's all that life is. It's just a bunch of concrete slabs that work around in some way.
Well, you and I both do that as well. Like I've done that same thing with some of my clients, where we've had a roadblock on something, and if I just sit there and, well, sorry, we can't move forward because of this, I'm going to get fired too.
Yeah.
Right? And so go around it. Well, I know we've been working on this challenge here. In the meantime, I've gone ahead and done these things that are maybe, smaller on the priority list, but hopefully we can still move the needle while we're waiting for this thing to go. And that really helps. And you've done that with me as well, too. When we were trying to, build some links in a certain area, and it was really difficult to get those. So you said, well, so we overcompensated in this other area. This is the call that we had last week.
Exactly, yeah. Still facilitating, still linking to like content and other things like that to provide that contextual and internal link relevance without just saying, well, we didn't do anything. Or we just followed up 70 times to these 600 websites, and that's it.
We're still doing that. Just
yeah, exactly. That's rest
call.
assured. Rest assured. But that's communication is key, and really, knowing when to pick your battles is like that's. I keep coming back to that. Is that what hill are you going to die on? That's
I love that.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to note that, we talk about these pains and these clients that come to us with these handcuffing us and all that kind of stuff, and unfortunately, a lot of them come looking for a new SEO because they've been burned and they've had hard situations that they've gone through, that they're trying to gain a little bit more control to make sure that their money is actually going towards something good. And so it's not that they come to us with those concerns and they're automatically an evil person. Like, we definitely have to resolve those concerns, or like, oh, you have these concerns, I definitely don't want to work with you. Work on resolving those concerns. So, Todd, if you don't mind sharing that situation with, we can't say the client, but when I sold that in August with the recent partnership that we've been working on, the goals that they had and how you looked at me and
just like, oh boy.
Oh well, Harris, let's reevaluate
this.
What were some of the steps that you took to overcome those concerns and to kind of change that campaign to have a more positive outcome?
Really, so the we can't speak to the client specifically, but they wanted to have certain pages of theirs, essentially product pages, rank by Black Friday, and they were coming to us in August. And by the time we actually got on the phone, it was about July, or I'm sorry, it was September by the time we were speaking. So realistically speaking, if we got links going immediately, they'd have about 2.5 months to have anything happen. Where sometimes we don't see pages get crawled for a couple weeks within a campaign. There's so many other factors that are out of our hands that it was really impossible. And so one of the ways that after having the conversation that, oh boy, we're in this we're in this boat, and we pushed together, really organizationally, we pushed off into the sea, and it was establishing how firm were those goals, and that was one of my first tactics to utilize is, are those goals that would be great, and this is a CEO that communicated this once in a meeting, and in turn it snowballed into this is exactly what's happening. If it's not the case, then it was easy to adjust, and that's what I found out. But in the moment, it was, okay, do you assume the worst, or assume that there are ways to work around this and that you can navigate those waters? And in my particular case, it was assuming the best, knowing the personality of this individual client, knowing how they communicated and worked with you in the past. It's like, okay, they seem reasonable, and in turn, I think I can just have an honest conversation with them right up front, saying, this is probably not going to happen. And I say probably because there's always those flukes, and I don't like to speak in absolutes all the time. Because you don't know in our industry when something on paper might not work out. We were just, when the cameras were off, we were just talking about a client that just shouldn't have worked out, and it did. And I'm glad that we took that on and we learned from that. But really, it is about establishing who you're working with, how firm those goals are, and then from there, that's how you act. And so if they would have been hard firm on that, then it would have been that conversation that you mentioned earlier, Scott, where it's like, well, maybe we'd have to fire each other almost. Because we signed up for this thing that we thought was realistic, or we needed in that moment, and it's not viable. Based on, and if you need more research or whatever kind of recourse needs to happen in order to put them in a good spot to keep that door open or that relationship continuing, we'll provide. But that's really how we navigated that.
There's a direct correlation between how good of an SEO you are and how often you use the phrase, it depends. I think it's like one of those things. I think when you're in the SEO industry, it's like there are no absolutes. It's like clients come to me and they're like, my boss says that he needs to see exactly what results we're going to get from you guys before we sign. We know what kind of ROI we're getting, and it's always the case that I always tell them, like, there's no way to know 100%. Like, there's so many, different considerations to make when an SEO campaign, things are out of your control. It's like, what I can do is I can show you the opportunity that exists, and I can build out a logical plan that shows you how we can capture that opportunity. But exactly when that happes or what that result looks like, there's no way to know 100%.
And
it depends.
I love organizationally how we provide. You were talking about projects you're passionate about. And how you want to develop that relationship and partnership with your clients. Very similar to that flexibility and knowing what you like and what you don't like. We're flexible in our reporting. And the things that you see and that we talk about are not anything like a lot of my other clients, either because of knowledge that you have, and so there's unnecessary fluff that we don't have to worry about, or there's a client who, for example, really knows pay per click or PPC. And so in turn, we communicate to them, like, we have these 25 keywords that we've now gained, and that equals, if you were paying for them, $800 a click combined. And what does that equal for you, and how you can communicate that to your bosses? And so to take something that doesn't make sense to maybe a CEO or somebody in that position, we can then in turn communicate it in a way that does make sense to them.
Mhm.
I just feel like whenever I hear anything about space or NASA, or it's like I'm not educated enough to know the fine details of the computers that are used or trajectories or anything like that. But then they have someone who communicates it. It's like, we're going to go around the moon, it's going to be quick and fast, and we're going to get great pictures. It's like, yes, like that sounds great. And again, that goes back into the goals and knowing how that goal is it the nitty gritty kind of goal, or is it an obtainable like direction as part of that goal? Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Scott?
I think it's all really been said, but I kind of relate with what Michael said earlier too, is anytime someone says, I need a guarantee, it's not a Tommy Boy thing. It's not a guarantee on the box. It really, it really is like, you need to run. If any marketing agency, in the SEO space, I think says, we'll guarantee X results, then just run, and link builders just run, because you can't. And if they're going to force something like that, it's going to be crappy.
Yeah.
And we've had experiences with link builders in the past too, that at a lower level, where we just needed some, lower end links and stuff. And we experimented with that, and where they said, okay, we'll get you X number of links this month. Then that turned into like 5 months, and they were still coming back. Okay, when are you going to renew? I'm like, I'm not, because you guaranteed these links within the month, and then you forced a bunch of crappy links in just to satisfy that number, when it's more of a campaign that's needed there too.
Yeah.
And so it was actually nice proof for me to go back and say, see what a great job Page One Power does. When I was told just do some of these, I'm like, okay, and so that was really nice. So it's the only thing you can guarantee is that we're going to work together to achieve a goal in mind, and here's like you said, we'll build out some logical ways and steps to get there. But it fortunately, I think that's something I've learned as well, to sabotage, or not really sabotage, but to prevent a bad relationship from happening if that's insisted. So.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I like within that, you were mentioning the getting a guarantee in a month time period and it actually taking 5. I think that in saying that, there's also, if they would have communicated that it would have taken 5, it could have been a different relationship. Now, maybe you might not have gone with them because you needed it sooner, but I think that something that some people find scary from a marketing perspective or SEO is providing timelines. I mean, I think that timelines are a great mile marker and or a great an opportunity. Again, in a year, we want to have 100,000 more sessions, clicks. We want that many more people to our website, and in turn, a year timeline, it could take 6 months, depending on what we do. It could take 8. It could have taken that year. I believe that it was a little bit before that year mark that it happened. Yeah. But timelines are still good, and timelines are something that is still. I think that it keeps people. It keeps the goal in mind. It keeps people on track of measuring results and communicating those results. And one of my favorite examples of that is that sometimes in our industry we don't know what we're doing or what will exactly work in order to get to those goals. Very similar to with the most recent moon landing anniversary that happened. NASA was given just 10 years from Kennedy to be like, we're going to go to the moon. And it's like, we've never gone to the moon before. No one had. Like, it was just like nothing, but okay, I guess 10 years is good enough for that. Like, and it's one of my favorite examples of that. But they needed that timeline because a couple engineers who were still around from that period were like, if we had an unlimited amount of time, we would have tweaked, technology would have changed. Like, you could just really get into the nitty gritty and essentially stall yourself by trying everything or perfecting every single action. And so it's a fine balance of having those goals, knowing if they're realistic or not, and communicating at mile markers from a timeline perspective what success you're seeing, what opportunities are we missing out on, and where can we pivot.
Sure.
So we can go to the moon from a link building perspective.
That's
If I was an agency, I'm just like, I need to go to the moon. It's like, what, you're in refrigerator sales. Like, what does that mean?
So, just a few key takeaways as we wrap this up, and I appreciate all the insight that both of you brought here, and Michael, thank you. Really, trust is one of the biggest things. Like when we're looking at campaigns, trust in the people you're working with on both ways. If you send homework home for your client to do, so then you can do additional work, like you have to trust that that's going to get done in the proper way, so that we're not handcuffed and things like that. But customization really seems to be like the focus. No campaign's the same. People come in with different goals, and when they trust us as professionals to accomplish those goals, we'll customize, we'll figure it out, we'll take risks, we'll try different things, but at the end, as we're following those timelines that you were mentioning, typically we're successful. And so is that kind of wrapping that up? Customization, trusting the person you're hiring and that partner, and really working to build a partnership.
Realistic goals, timelines,
and those timelines should be customizable as well too. I think. The client may come to you with a certain goal and a timeline like we talked about before, and you have to throw that against the wall and see if it really sticks or not, and if it's reasonable or because you don't want to take on something and knowing that it's like totally unreasonable either, because then that hurts you as the agency as well as creates bad vibes and taste and stuff too. So I think there's some dignity and some duty to actually vet those things out and respectfully say, we're not the right people to do that for you. And we're not going to step into that bear trap, so to speak, but sometimes the timelines need to be adjustable as well too, because if someone were to say, hey Scott, when am I going to be on page 1 for this keyword term? There's so many variables that go into that, and even if I have a plan, Google can change it halfway through, so there's dynamics that have to be considered.
It can also devalue the other work that, let's say that they wanted, just as an example, a keyword that had 40,000 on average views per month, and during that entire campaign you found opportunities to gain that and more with other keywords or other opportunities that you found. And there are times that I've had to deal with this where you can delude yourself or distract yourself by having just that hard goal. I need that exact thing, and it's like, but it devalues potentially everything else that has been worked on again, to exceed that goal and more, depending on what it is. But it's that flexibility. I think the knowing to when to have those hard conversations. I used working out as an example. It's like, I need to lose 70 pounds in a month, and it's just like, well, that's not how I do it. There are ways, exactly. There are ways to absolutely do that, but it's going to take work and time and dedication, and we will get there. But again, maybe we're not right for each other, or listen to how I would do it and why it's going to be better for you overall. So maybe you can't have that summer bod 2019, but you can have it in 2020 and beyond.
Right. Well, and from link building as well, if I want to be domain authority, 80, and I'm at a 40 right now in 2 months or something, it's just like, well, you could build with unlimited budget. It's still not the right way to do it, and that's not healthy growth, and that raises certain flags as well. No, appreciate it. We get going, so you probably just cut this off.
Just one last, really customizing that timeline. I appreciate you pointing those couple of examples out, and we appreciate you guys coming in and spending a few minutes today and having this conversation.
That's great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more about our products or services, be sure to visit our website at pageonepower.com.